So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the work of Parker Thompson as the Honda Indy approaches it. It's a massive event here in Toronto, but really in Canada, as Dave said, you know, it is one of those things that if that's what you like to watch, if that's a big thing for your summer, that's why they get in the tens and tens and tens of thousands to watch this. This is Indy Lights. And so I think we're going to look at Parker's work. This is when he was down in Alabama, I want to say. So this is a race in Alabama. He's kind of showing us a little bit of his car and some of the features on it and just kind of how it looks. He's a very easygoing guy. He's Canadian. His ride is Mazda. He is at Pro Mazda, which is pretty cool. Not always easy to get a ride. So Parker Thompson going to join us in studio after we see some of his work, including the work down in Alabama.
So first off here, we've got the Minion, which is an exclusive Autosport special. Essentially, we got it out of a cereal box, but it plays great music. And one of our favorite tunes this weekend is Sweet Home Alabama, so we will be playing that quite a bit out of our little Minion friend here. I'm going to go ahead and get in the trusty steed. She's a good girl. She was on pole in St. Petersburg, and we'll be looking to do the same here in Alabama. Now, as I get in, you're going to notice some weird things, first and foremost. If you can hand me my steering wheel there, Tony, that would be much appreciated. Okay, and I'm going to just, that's upside down, but okay. That's why you're the interviewer and I'm the driver. That's why I'm driving. Okay, so I'm in my car right now. I'm just going to leave this right here. Essentially, I've got a track map, I got my steering wheel, but you're going to notice that here in Alabama, we do have an Alabama special. My favorite movie is Talladega Nights, and Ricky Bobby sold Fig Newtons on the front of his windshield, so this weekend I sold Open Highway on my windscreen. So this sticker may be dangerous and inconvenient, but darn, I do love Open Highway.
There it is right there. That is the work of Parker Thompson, who joins us now in studio, including, get a load of that cool helmet. That is just...
So is that the one you actually use in the car, or is this just a replica?
Nope. This is
show the fans kind of
the
thing?
Real one.
It is, right?
Yeah, so don't drop it.
No.
You take it to the bars to get the girls? Because I know I would.
No, you know what? I'm not James Hunt. I'm pretty low-key on the race weekends.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. And a Red Deer boy?
Yes.
Oh, I like that. They got way too many stoplights on that when you're coming down, was it 2? It drives me nuts downtown. I hate the stoplights.
Well, they're changing it, hopefully.
Oh, are they?
Hopefully.
Not that you care about stoplights. So you go right through stoplights like you don't care, right?
No, I obey the rules. I'm actually, all my friends make fun of me. I'm a pretty safe driver.
Well, you know what? I think most of you guys that are professional drivers are like the safest drivers. It's not the reckless.
Driving Miss Daisy or what? Really?
Yeah.
Oh no,
speed limits, really?
Speed limits and all.
That's
well,
amazing.
you were with Distracted Driving, an advocate. So Drive to Stay Alive. How did that come about?
So interesting enough, when I was in grade 10, I had a really dear friend get involved in a bad accident, texting and driving. First day she had her license.
Oh God.
And it was pretty well at that point I said something needs to be done about texting and driving, especially in Alberta. We're a pretty bad province for it. And I looked up texting and driving, and there was really no campaigns to stop it. There's no national campaign. So I thought, why not at least start talking to high schools and see where it went? And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, I'm doing a national tour. So that's kind of how it started. I think it's impactful when you've got a high school student themselves talking about distracted driving to other peers. And that's kind of how I got started in this.
But you bring up a point too. I never thought about this. If let's say it's Highway 2, and let's say you're going anywhere between, let's say, Edmonton south, all the way to Lethbridge, where how far? There's a lot of flat driving. There's a lot of nothingness. That temptation, probably to be on that phone, is got to be maybe massive, one of the worst.
For sure.
Yeah, like I never really thought about. Look, if you're going through the mountains, going towards Banff, you're kind of paying attention.
Yes.
But there's a lot of downtime the other way, and going, of course,
just
through
like the
Saskatchewan and Manitoba
through Saskatchewan, same sort of thing.
I never thought of that.
Yeah,
that's true.
You're watching the same thing for 16 consecutive hours.
Yes.
So I'm a Manitoba guy.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, then you understand.
Yeah. So let's talk about. Let's go back. Parker Thompson, you go to high school in Red Deer.
Yes.
And at the same time, like, is your father in the business of driving, or is this just something that you're all of a sudden you just said, I want to do this?
No, it's kind of funny. So we'll take it all the way back to 5-year-old Parker. So 5-year-old Parker was watching his dad race actually jet boats. So in Alberta, we've got a lot of rivers. A lot of guys race jet boats. So I watched my dad race, and he was quite successful with it. I mean, the biggest thing for me was I wanted to be involved in racing. So my dad got me a dirt bike at the age of 5. At the age of 5.5, my mom said, "No, we're not racing dirt bikes. My son is too important to me." So we sold the dirt bike, and we got a cart for the age of 8. My 8th birthday was a go-kart.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool for 8 years old.
It is pretty cool.
Pretty cool for any
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
Really cool. Now, the only go-kart track, worth really racing at that time was in Calgary, Race City.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I lived in Red Deer, so every weekend it was kind of a pastime. My dad and I would take the family half-ton. We'd drive up, race our go-kart on the weekends, drive back. It started out as just a hobby, but within a couple years it turned from a hobby to pretty serious.
Like, a lot of people may want to do it, and a lot of kids, let's say they get a go-kart and they're going to Race City in Calgary, but that doesn't mean you're good enough to get to where you are. So something has happened between then and now where someone has said to you, or you've been approached, or in that organization that you're actually good enough to do this, because not everyone is.
For sure. And it's funny, I actually I just got done a high school commencement speech about 2 weeks ago back in Red Deer, and they asked me to talk about, dreams and aspirations. And it's funny looking back at my career. As soon as I got out of that cart the very first time, I knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that's, in the business of racing, it's a tough business to make it professionally. Right. You have to, find a lot of money.
Well, so you're a Mazda guy?
Yes.
Well,
so Mazda sponsors the entire series.
Okay, I got you. Okay, yeah. So, when individually, like, one of the toughest things that I always hear from guys, even substantial names, is, trying to find a ride.
I know. I mean, look at guys that don't have rides, or even you look at Tony Kanaan a couple years ago. He lost his ride from Ganassi, and he's a pretty well-known name in IndyCar. So money, at the end of the day, it unfortunately doesn't even matter how good you are. You still have to be marketable.
So you're going to sell, because this is the first thing, and I'm sure, Dave, this will strike you about Parker we've not met beforehand, but you're very affable. You're very verbal. You're very very likable, very approachable. There's an energy to you, which is awesome, which in some guys, they don't always have it. But, I think of guys like, James Hinchcliffe. He's got a personality that it's got to help in terms of you trying to sell yourself on trying to get that ride. I think if you're just, you went in gas from down south, said, I don't know, man. I don't know, you got any money? Because my mama don't got no money, and I came from a trailer. So what do you say?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you could get away with that now.
No, and especially nowadays in IndyCar, with it being so expensive to be competitive, you look at the amount of money teams are spending. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So you need to have drivers that are, A, quick in the car, and B...
Like, we're talking millions.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the budget of Penske, it's well over, I would say, for their 4 cars, it's well over $20 million.
The season's been very good for you so far. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it has been good. So to give you kind of a let's start at the beginning of the history of Exclusive Autosport and I. So
okay.
In 2016, I finished second in USF 2000. I led the championship from the start all the way to the second last race. I got a flat tire. All I needed to do was finish in the top 10. I finished 12.
Oof.
Because of a flat tire. Okay.
And I lost the championship. I went from winning 450,000 Canadian is the scholarship in USF 2000 to winning 10,000 at the banquet.
Oh my God.
And I, at that time, had promised all of my sponsors, most of them from Alberta, but all of them from Canada, promised them that year was my year. And if they gave me the money to go race, I would win the championship, and I wouldn't be asking them for money again. Fast forward to 2017, I didn't have a ride. It was almost March, and I thought I was done racing. I seriously had hung my helmet up at that point, and I got a call 2 weeks before the season from Exclusive Autosport, who was a Canadian team racing in 1600. So that's a level below USF 2000.
Okay.
And they said they're moving to USF 2000. They're a Canadian team, and they were looking for a Canadian driver. Come down and test in Sebring with us. Went and tested in Sebring, and all of a sudden got signed for USF 2000 for my third year with Exclusive Autosport. We raced last year. Our first 2 wins were actually in Toronto.
Nice.
So, yeah, we got their maiden wins in home here on home soil, which was really emotional. That was an awesome weekend. We didn't win the championship, unfortunately, but I did enough of a performance for them to move me up to Pro Mazda. So this is our second consecutive year with the team. And it's, again, we moved up another category with them. So it's kind of cool history. So I'm in Pro Mazda. To take the history of it, we're winning the championship right now. It's been a pretty successful season. We've got the most wins out of anyone in the series, and hopefully we can capture a couple more here in Toronto.
So then, for those, including myself, that are relatively uninitiated to when you get to the different series as you move up. So the goal then eventually is to drive in what series? If we're looking at Parker Thompson in 7 years.
Hopefully IndyCar. I mean, that's the dream. That's the
So
Mazda road to Indy.
You don't want to be in Monaco with other models and the sexy people and smoking and supermodels and saying, "Oh, I don't like you."
You know what? I would honestly love to, and it's always been a dream of mine, Formula One. But if you look at Formula One, if you think IndyCar is expensive, Formula One is on an absolute different planet.
Like, it's a different universe. I understand.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Now, if a sponsor came to me and said, "Hey, let's go to Formula One," I'm definitely not saying no. But a realistic goal with the way that Mazda has their scholarship set up, I can get to IndyCar by my talent alone, not by sponsorship.
Right.
If I win the championship this year, it's $1 million Canadian for me to move to Indy Lights. And that's $1 million that I didn't have last year.
So the next move up would be Indy Lights, or you're in Indy Lights?
So I'm in Pro Mazda,
right,
which is one step above USF 2000,
right,
one step below Indy Lights.
I got you.
So
and the Indy Lights step, that next step is
IndyCar.
Yeah.
After Indy Lights. So if I win Pro Mazda, they grant you $1 million Canadian to move up into Indy Lights. If you win Indy Lights, they grant you almost 1.4 Canadian to move up to IndyCar.
Now, when you're talking about that kind of money, that money goes where? Like, people are listening going, "Well, that's great. Now he's going to get $1 million." But I'm pretty sure it's not a check for $1 million.
It's not. It's definitely not going to buy a house and a car.
You're going to Boston Pizza in Red Deer going, "Yeah, hello."
Trust me, I wouldn't be going to Boston Pizza if I had $1 million.
Because that money's going to get burned up pretty fast, I'm guessing, with all the commitments.
It does. I mean, you look at Indy Lights, it's a pretty competitive field. You can spend a lot of money trying to win there. But it does, I mean, the way they have it set up, they've worked hard with the teams to establish a budget that will win a championship. So it's enough money for you to compete.
So is there someone then that you look at as a Canadian driver? I mean, depending if you look at Villeneuve or whoever it could be, if you're looking at an influence of what you consider to be really successful Canadian driver, who is it?
Well,
for you,
I mean, if you look at the all-time win list, you've got Paul Tracy, who's leading the Canadians by a long shot.
Yes.
Right.
I always liked Paul for his fireness. Yes. I mean, when he wore the Nacho Libre mask.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely someone I look up to. But unfortunately nowadays, you probably can't get away with the way that he marketed himself.
Right.
So you look at a guy like James Hinchcliffe. I mean, there's your kind of ultimate. It doesn't matter if you're Canadian or American, any nationality. I think James is probably leading the way for sponsorship activation and marketability. I mean, the guy's a genius off the track, and he can drive a car, which is really important.
Yeah.
You've got his teammate, Robert Wickens, who's soft-spoken but can drive a race car too. So those are two pretty good guys to look up to. But I think if you look back in the history or if you ask any Canadian who their all-time favorite IndyCar driver is, I mean, Greg Moore's up there. He's
Greg Moore. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I mean, he only had 6 wins, but at the same time, I think his likability, he was such a good person. He would be the guy that would stay to the track till 10 p.m. signing kids' autographs and really all about the fans. So
have you gotten a chance to talk to Paul or in this case James Hinchcliffe on who's actually going to be racing in this not at the same time but in the same track sort of thing? Do you ever get a chance to converse with some of these guys?
Yeah, James is usually always pretty open.
Yeah.
I know at the start of the Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, he came up to me at the start of the race. I was on pole. And he shook my hand and said, "Good luck." So that's cool. I mean, those guys are always... I know how busy they are. I know how busy I am, so I can only imagine how busy they are on a race weekend, especially this weekend. And they're pretty open to talking. Paul, he's the reporter for NBC, so he's always around.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't know exactly who I am, but we have the same initials.
He will.
So a lot of people call me the new PT.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this weekend, we're sitting here on a Wednesday. What does it look like? Because I'm guessing this weekend mirrors a lot of other weekends for you when it comes to racing weekend. What happens on Thursday? What happens on Friday? Saturday, I think we know what happens, but take us through your schedule in a nutshell.
So this weekend is on steroids. So about
Right.
50% of my sponsorship comes from this one race alone, being Canadian, and this is our only Canadian race. So I've got media tons of it.
Right.
I mean, I love these types of interviews because they're relaxed. The media I got to go do is, a little bit more suit and tie.
It's
and
not in a bar.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot of fun.
And not as good as us.
Exactly.
So
I get to enjoy
that.
myself in this interview. The other
Right.
ones I really got to work for.
Yeah.
So really, the start of Thursday.
You probably get, so as a young man, are you a good driver?
Yeah. Where you guys ask the good
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
that I can actually have fun with and work with a little. They're more, how do you drive a race car? Well, they turn left and right. So starting Thursday is going to be a media frenzy.
Yeah.
We've got a track walk and a driver's meeting Thursday. So track walks are really important. A lot of people don't realize that race car drivers actually walk the tracks before they race them.
So what are you
to
looking
see the
for?
layout.
What are you looking for?
Well, they repaved this track. So I'm looking at all the different changes. I'll take my notepad and write different changes of what I see. The cool thing about street courses that are different from permanent race courses is they change every year. So every year it is a little bit different. I don't think people realize that. But if you move the concrete barrier a couple inches, we're going to notice it.
Right.
So we notice every change, and especially Toronto here with the great winters that we have in Canada.
Sure.
It changes the track every year just with frost heaves and the pavement changes.
So is that a concern more or less with the way in the when it comes to tire usage? Is it related to tires when you're talking about stuff like this?
Related to tires, but also more or less related to the car setup. So how high you can run the car, how low you can run the car. With the pavement change, we're probably going to be able to run the car lower. Running the car lower is going to give you more overall downforce. For those of you who don't know why you can run it lower, less bumps mean you can run the car lower. It's not hitting the ground all the time because you do not want to do that. So it's kind of interesting. So you'll walk with your engineer and you'll just notice different things that were different from last year. You'll write notes, and then that's our practice objective. We get one practice on Friday, one 30-minute practice. And all throughout practice, really, we're just going to be looking at how high we can run the car, what setup changes we can do to make the
kind of
balance.
adjusting with what you took with the notes to what you feel in the car.
Exactly.
And mentally. Okay. See, that makes a lot, because it's funny because you have to go through a process as a team to not only remember but reflect and write everything. It's almost like yesterday. We were at a golf course that I played last year at the same time. It was the second time I was there, but if somebody sat there and said, "Tell me about hole number 10," I'm like, I have no idea. I never studied it properly. I couldn't tell you if it was a short one, a long one, a dog leg right, left. But with you have to take that a little more serious as far as visualizing something, because you're not going to be here technically until next year, knock on wood. We're thinking you are, but we don't want to go too far ahead. But it's one of those things where every track is different, every turn is different, and the obstacles that appear on the track is something you have to take note of.
100%. And that's kind of, I think, it goes with, now I've been on tour with the Mazda Road to Indy for a couple years. You start going through the motions of, you start remembering just even the gear changes. Like I could tell you right off bat, I haven't even looked at the data yet, but I could tell you what gears in every corner. I could tell you the lines. So if you played that course, let's say every year at the same time, you'd probably start to realize, this is the dog leg left, and that's kind of race car drivers. It's a big circus. Every race weekend, we're moving somewhere else, and then you switch gears and you're focused on that track. And
I think another learning tool could be watching Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise, because I thought that was a very realistic portrayal.
I really hope my race team treats me like they treated him if we win. I'd really like a race hauler memory on the highway.
Any NASCAR guy you can say, "Hey, have you ever seen Days of Thunder?" I'm telling you right now, just run. Like, get ready. Don't hang around. Don't bring it up. So it's all bad news. Well, it's things that people might want to know that are very simple things for those sort of listening to you uninitiated for the first time. Depending on, again, how high you're gonna or low you're gonna run your car, depending on what that setup's gonna be, generally in a straightaway where you can open it up, what kinds of speeds are we talking about here?
So we're talking about 160, 170 miles per hour. I mean, every track, we're well over 200 kilometers an hour.
Right.
So I would say at the Toronto Indy, we're probably going to hit 260, 270 kilometers.
Wow.
Ish, ballpark.
Devin,
250.
Devin's been saying he does that all the time in the back roads.
Yeah,
That's the Devin right there.
What is interesting is a lot of people don't realize this. So this little Mazda 2-liter is what we have in our engine, for our engine. It produces 300 horsepower naturally, so no turbos, no superchargers.
Really? Okay.
Yep,
yeah.
All natural. But what people don't realize is our top speeds are actually pretty close to IndyCar, and they're pretty close to Indy Lights. It's just how we get there. It's the difference of acceleration. But once we get there, the speeds are actually quite similar going down Lakeshore Drive.
Got a couple questions for you. So your car number 90?
Yes.
What's the reason for 90?
It's a good question. When I sign with the team, so teams actually, and this goes true for IndyCar, teams have to buy their numbers.
Oh, okay.
Same with NASCAR, any motorsport.
Okay, I didn't realize that either.
Teams buy their numbers, and believe it or not, the numbers are really expensive. So Exclusive Autosport has had number 90. That's kind of been their trademark number for years now, for the decade that the team's been running. So they bought that number from the Mazda Road-to-Indy, and when they signed, they asked me what number I wanted from 90 to 100. And I said, well, 90 seems pretty good. I've always liked the number 9. So growing up in hockey, when I played hockey, I was always number 9.
Right.
So I thought, you know what, put a 0 behind it and call it a day.
Bingo.
But not 99. Like, you're in Red Deer, so you got a choice.
I didn't want to do the
north?
Gretzky
Yeah, I was
thing.
gonna say,
You
that's
know,
a move of jinx. It's, one
So
of those
Oilers
numbers,
or Flames?
Oh, family rivalry in the Thompson household.
Ooh, really?
Yes, mom's side all Calgary Flames, dad's side all Edmonton Oilers.
Wow.
And it's heated, really heated.
But I've heard that in Red Deer because that's kind of the
We're
dividing
dead.
line.
I mean,
split.
literally,
Yeah.
if you timed it, an hour and a half to Calgary, an hour and a half to Edmonton. Exactly.
Yeah.
You couldn't get more in the middle.
Yeah.
I would have to say I was always an Oilers fan as a kid growing up.
I just say that hurts me a little bit. I mean, we were getting along so well.
I
thought we were
know,
becoming
I
friends.
know. I didn't want to say it, but I will say I'm a closet Oilers fan because we've had a couple tough seasons.
Yeah, it's like,
Even with the best draft picks,
We're going to win the cup.
no, you're not.
No.
Apparently. Well, they got to be better this year. I mean, even just by virtue of going through another season, I mean, they have to be better, don't they?
You would think, but you know what? I mean, knock on wood just saying that because it's been tough. So they've got that brand new, I don't know if you've ever been, the Rogers, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's their Ice Palace.
Okay.
And it's their brand new
the
arena.
practice facility and the new arena they have downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
Rogers
you guys
Place,
ever get a chance to go to it, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's too bad that, they moved from the old Rexall place, which
That's
was,
right.
a lot of history in there.
Yep.
Tons.
And they moved to this new place, and we still can't get the team going. I don't know what's going on. But
And what's with the rabbit on the side of your helmet? Because my 5 and 2-year-old daughters would love this. They'd be looking at this, and then they notice this rabbit here, and they'd be like, "That would be the coolest part of it."
that is so funny. I'll have to get to know you guys better.
Doesn't have to do with the Pilsner thing, does it? Finding the rabbit?
No,
Not that
it doesn't
one?
have
No?
to do with the Pilsner's thing.
Okay.
It's a little
Okay.
team inside
Okay,
joke.
we'll approach that next
Yeah,
time.
we'll
but
talk about it
but
off
when you
air.
look at it, you see all these cool things, and then Thompson, you got your name on it, of course, or a nickname. A
Yep.
lot of guys will have it on the back or the front, the number, and then this is rabbit. But we'll get to the rabbit at another time.
Yeah, I bet you it's
Sounds
disturbing. I bet you it's really disturbing. I can tell you it's not a good story.
Well, I think it's
When
probably
people
a really
go,
good story, actually.
maybe we'll talk about that later. Bad story. Terrible story.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's too good.
Because now there's going to be rabbit people going, why? Why's you got a rabbit on there? What do they do to the rabbits? They don't do anything. Well, maybe they do. I don't know.
It's that bunny on your lawnmower.
Yeah.
That's what
There you
yeah.
go.
Look, there's a lot of, and there's downtime for these guys. You don't want to know. I think you just probably don't want to
I
know.
have a house full of bunnies, puppies, kittens.
Okay.
So the girls love. So as soon as I saw that, boom, it means something else. It's not what I think. Okay. Anyway.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been a real pleasure. Like, I mean, I'm a fan now. I mean, I think that generally, I mean, you talked about, the challenges in trying to do this for a living, and a lot of it has to do with saleability and what people like. And I don't know how anyone would not like this guy.
No,
I have no idea how.
Like honestly,
yeah.
how old are you?
It's 20.
See, because he comes across as a guy that could be in his mid-30s the way he speaks.
Yeah, but also if he comes into a bar, I'm carding him.
Well, yeah, that's
He's
fair.
saying I'm 20. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
look
fine.
15.
Yeah.
No. It's good to be carded. Trust me. It's coming from me. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very good to be
Yeah.
carded. No, but you have yourself. You present yourself well, and there's an energy about you.
And a maturity. There's a real maturity to it.
We've been on this show now because we're the former TSN morning show.
Yes.
Now we're doing this for about a year and a bit now. We've had everybody from the highest celebrity of the NHL, former NHLers, to politicians, to musicians, and honestly, you not only fit into that group, but probably exceed a lot of the people that
I
we
agree.
talk to today.
I agree.
In our time.
I agree.
It's just a compliment to you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
You're
This
going to have a
shows-
very bright future, which is why I'm going to say this now. So when good stuff happens, supermodels, actresses, singers, girls like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or whatever's going to happen for you. Who knows? Or maybe the Justin Bieber of car racing at some point. Who knows?
But the cool version.
Yeah, but we want to know. We want to know everything.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We will we'll hit up this bar right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
There you go.
And guess what? That bunny story, it's coming out.
Yes.
One way or the other. We're getting that bunny story. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.
So awesome
Thank
to meet
Dave.
you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys having me on the show. And if you guys ever need tickets to the races, you let me know.
See, there.
Done.
See, this is what I'm talking
And
about.
good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
this
best
weekend.
of luck. We know who we're cheering for, and that, of course, is Parker Thompson.
Number 90.
Appreciate it.
Number 90 with the bunny on the side of the helmet. And don't ask. So before he leaves, we're just going to show exactly what I guess. Here's something. I guess the camera is taken from your perspective of driving.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're going to hear the whir of the engine, and you just take a look at this thing. I know exactly what's going to go on
Yeah, inside the car.
inside the car. But you're going to look at it and be going, "Oh yeah, I got PlayStation, or I got Xbox One."
Yeah, no, this
Yeah,
is real.
no, this is real. So when you're going 270 clicks,
You don't get a second man.
you don't go, "Oh, okay, mom, not now." No, this is the real deal.
Can't
It's
press pause.
yeah. I bet you
Or
would.
reset.
Yeah, or
When you make a
reset.
whoopsie.
Yeah. How many lives do you get? Yeah, this one. So that's what you're doing. Let's take a look. Here's some of the work with Parker Thompson.
And there he is on the straightaway. Such excellent acceleration. Looking for the inside-outside move, and there he goes. What a chance. And he does go by him. Tremendous lap. Parker Thompson, Pro Mazda. And there's Mike Richards, his coach, surrounded by a bevy of beautiful girls. There's the Olsen twins. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. The Olsen twins, I don't believe, are prized at this point, at this juncture in time. There was a time when they were quite hot, but now they've had some personal issues. I believe one of them doesn't eat that much, and the other one's on drugs. So there we go. There's Parker Thompson. Wonderful job.
What? We just become best friends?
Yep.